What if the money's sitting in your bank account? What if it's not just a tool, but a trap? That's what we're digging into today. Is our entire financial system an addiction that we don't even see? Let's just jump right in with a really provocative thought. What if the whole system, from top to bottom, is actually designed to get you hooked? So the central idea we're unpacking is this, that fiat money, the money we all use every day, acts kind of like a digit addiction. It gets us completely hooked on numbers that, well, they aren't really based on anything real. And this slide lays out a pretty powerful analogy, comparing fiat money to a street drug. And when you look at it this way, it's kind of wild. Think about it. A drug is a physical product, but fiat is just abstract digits. It costs almost nothing to create. And that first dose, it's super easy to get into. It's the only game in town, right? But once you're in, trying to opt out becomes incredibly difficult. This all leads to this incredible metaphor of the monkey trap. You know the one. A monkey reaches into a coconut for some rice, but it can't pull its fist out as long as it's holding it onto the rice. It's trapped by its own desire. The argument here is that we're the monkeys, and we're clinging to this illusion of value, even while the system kind of exploits us for holding on. But okay, this brings up a really important question. We need to be critical here. Are we talking about a literal chemical addiction, or is something else going on? So let's just ask it directly. Is this a real addiction, like a substance dependency thing, or is that word addiction just being used as a metaphor for something deeper? And the source material actually clarifies this. It's not a substance addiction. It's an analogy. See, fiat money isn't something we consume. It's just an idea, a story we all agree to believe in. The so-called addiction is really about being trapped inside this shared illusion. It's like a prison built in our minds, and that's what makes it so hard to escape. But here's the thing. An illusion in the mind can have absolutely devastating consequences in the real world. So let's talk about the human cost of this system. The idea here is that when you manipulate something as fundamental as money, it creates all these pressures that lead to these awful, unforeseen tragedies. They're called second-order consequences. They're not the direct result, but the tragic ripple effects that spread through society. And to make this really concrete, the analysis shares a truly harrowing story from Ivan Makedonski. He talks about how the incredible financial stress on his family after the 2008 crisis led to the breakdown of his parents' marriage. And tragically, it all culminated in his stepfather murdering his mother. He sees this as a direct, if delayed, consequence of a broken financial system pushing good people to their absolute breaking point. So after seeing such a deep-seated problem, what's the solution? Well, the source suggests it's all about reconnecting our idea of value back to reality. Just think about how we build our entire modern society. We rely on universal standards that are grounded in physical reality. A meter is a meter. A second is a second, everywhere on Earth. They're based on constants of nature, like the speed of light. We discover them. We don't just make them up. Now, contrast that with fiat money. Its value isn't tied to anything physical. It has value simply because a government says it does. It's a subjective command, not an objective universal measurement. And this is the core of the proposed solution. The idea is that just like the meter is our universal standard for length, Bitcoin could become a new, incorruptible standard for economic value, one that's rooted in the objective reality of mathematics, not a government's decree. So what does that actually mean for us? Adopting a new standard for value. The vision here goes way beyond just money. It's about potentially changing the very rules of the human game itself. The argument goes that our current system often rewards win-lose behavior. Where getting ahead means taking something from someone else. A system built on a fair, unchangeable standard could shift the incentives towards what's called selfish altruism, a world where the best way to help yourself is to cooperate and create value with other people, a win-win game. To put it maybe a little more bluntly, the ultimate goal is to change the rules of the game so that people who prey on others, well, they just don't have a profitable business model anymore. It's about defunding destructive behavior right at the source. And all of this leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought to chew on. There's an old idea that human nature is kind of like water. It just takes the shape of its container. So, if our money is the container that shapes our economic behavior, can fixing that container actually change us for the better? If you want to explore the full conversation for yourself, you can find the original source of the analysis right there in the description. And hey, If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to follow, like, and share the What Bitcoin Taught Me podcast. You can find us on Twitter/X, Noster, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in.